Hello and welcome to the home of the Ghost Owl, as we now take a look at a comparison of all the characters for the Empire of Man. It's part of our faction focus series in Warhammer the Old World. So let's take a look at the different characters. So if you did get to see the faction focus series for the Dwarven Mountain Halls, we did a similar thing there. And what we're doing here is we're taking a look at all of the different character options, taking a look at where their stats are focused, where they stand out, where they are weak, looking at their armor save, looking where they sit with points, and then in our mind considering, their role, and there are special rules in here as well in terms of what they're supposed to do. But it does give you kind of a flavour of value for points in what you're trying to get out of them. So in terms of movement, I've not highlighted any here because basically everybody on foot has got a movement of 4. The Grandmaster and Chapter Master, they stick out because they have no on-foot option. They can only be mounted on a barded warhorse, and therefore they've got that basic movement of 7. Now, when it comes to weapon skill, the Grandmaster has the highest weapon skill of all the Empire characters, coming in at weapon skill 6. There are a few in there of weapon skill 5, but the Grandmaster is the highest. The two lowest, no surprises in terms of weapon skill, being the Master Mage and the Engineer. Now, in terms of ballistic skill, both the General and the Captain have the highest ballistic skill, and they do have some pretty interesting ranged options. The Engineer there having ballistic skill of 4 and the Witch Hunter of 4. Everybody else having 3, with no real surprises there. I think the interesting thing, though, with the General and Captain is they've got a high ballistic skill, but in most cases, that type of character, you're going to want it in a unit of melee infantry, boosting the leadership. So in reality, I think, does that ballistic skill really go to waste, is what I'm saying. Are you really getting the benefit from it? In terms of strength, pretty much everybody in terms of characters got a strength of 4, the exceptions being the Engineer and the Wizard Lords. No real problem there because these are the guys you don't want in combat. Toughness-wise, again, pretty similar story. Everyone pretty much toughness of 4, except your Master Mage and your Engineer. In terms of wounds, nothing, again, that really stands out. And you can see, if you look across the board at all the stats, how the Empire really do sit in with the average of everything. They just are average just on everything you see. So, wounds-wise, all your Lords are 3 wounds, all your heroes are 2 wounds. Initiative-wise, the Grandmaster, again, sticking out with that high initiative of 6. You can really see he got high weapon skill, high initiative with his high attacks as well. He really is the melee lord. If you're looking for something, unless you're going to take a general and really kit him out with magic items, put him on a monster, that sort of thing, the Grandmaster is clearly the best at melee, but he only comes mounted, right? Everybody else pretty much sitting on that initiative 4 and 5, as you'd expect from characters, with the Wizards and the Engineer having the lowest initiative. And again, these are guys who don't want in combat, so no real issues there. Attacks-wise, again, Grandmaster having the best from the attacks. You can see the Grandmaster there across the board having some really, really good stats, only really weak in ballistic skill. Lowest attacks coming from the Master Mage and the Engineer, and again, no surprises, not people you want in combat. Leadership, 2 highest leaderships are the General and the Grandmaster. Everybody else having leaderships of 8, though it should be noted the Priests 7, Master Mage of 7, and the Engineer with a leadership of 7, which are the lowest of the characters. And overall, that leadership of 7 is not that high for a character. So taking those particular heroes for into a unit to get the benefit of the leadership is really not what you're taking them for. The Priests, you're taking them for the prayers. The Mage you're taking for the spells. The Engineer you're taking for his buffs to the War Machine. So you're not really taking those characters for leadership. And there's only a few units that are really going to get the benefit that have lower leadership than that. Armor save wise, well, the Grandmaster, Chapter Master clearly have the best. They've got that full plate armor and the barding. But the General and Captain have the option to take that. If you mount them, they can get that 2+ armor save. So, I have included them there. The General and Captain as well, on foot can get down to 3+, right? Which is, it's pretty much the best armor save you can get for an infantry character, and then also for the mounted character. So pretty good overall. Everybody else, they've been relatively weak. You've got your Witch Hunter there. He's only got a 6+ armor save. Your Engineers on a 6+. Your Wizards with nothing. So some vulnerable characters there. The only thing is with the Priest. The Priest obviously being able to get to that 4+ armor save. So that makes the Priest have a bit more usability when in those units, giving them the buffs from the prayers. And it also then at the same time does make me question what you're really getting from the Witch Hunter, especially given the situational nature of his rules. And when you look across the stats for the Witch Hunter, he's not that expensive. He's the second most cheapest character out there. But what are you really getting for those points? So the Witch Hunter, I think, really does stick out as something that, where's the value in him? When you look at the points, the Grandmaster, he's pretty much green across the board, but that comes at the points cost. So the Grandmaster being the most expensive in points, and second to him is the Wizard Lord, and then third being the Lector of Sigmar and the High Priest. So overall, when you look at a general is pretty good value in terms of points, right? He comes pretty low points, but he's got lots of green in terms of his strength, toughness, wounds, leadership, armor save, ballistic skill, weapon skill, all pretty good. So, overall, the general, not bad. I think the misconception can be is actually he's not that expensive. But when you actually kit him out, that's when his points really go up. So you have to pay for that full plate armor. Then you're paying for the weapons you're giving him. You're probably giving him magic items. Unless you're going to make a really cheap general of the Empire and stick him in some great swords or something like that, the general could get real expensive real quickly because he has so many options and mounts and magic item options and so on. So it's one to be careful of. He looks quite cheap, could get very expensive. But the Captain and Engineer, excellent value for points. The Captain, really, he's the lowest points cost for a hero. He's a melee hero. Again, though those points can jump up quite quickly if you're paying the 25 points for the Battle Standard Bearer, plus all the options, just like the General. So again, appears cheap, but could get expensive quite quickly if you're not careful on what you're spending your points on. The Engineer, joint lowest points value for a hero. Amazing value for points if you're going heavy on the war machines. If you're taking something like Hellblasters, volley guns, Hellstorm rocket batteries, even a great cannon, the benefit of the Engineer really, really good, and thoroughly recommended. If you got it's one war machine, the Engineer is great and great value, but when you're going into multiple war machines, particularly something like a Hellblaster volley gun, an Engineer is pretty much a must-have. So there you go. That pretty much takes us across the character comparison. The Priests of Sigmar, again, offering that value. There's very little difference, really, between the Priests and the High Priest or the Lector. And when you're taking them for the prayers, you're going to opt for the Priests, absolutely. The Witch Hunter sticks out as being not really very valuable at all, I think, overall. I think the Grandmaster and the Chapter Master are really interesting choices as being sort of default pretty damn good in melee without having to spend a fortune on items. It wouldn't take too many, cheap magic items. Give them a cheap magic weapon, a potion of strength or something like that, and it could be quite a dangerous foe on the battlefield, and you haven't really spent too much. Like I say, they appear expensive at first, but the general could quickly overtake them by the time you've paid for mount and magic items. There you go, a quick run through looking at a comparison of the characters for the Empire. I hope it was useful. And if it was, give it a thumbs up. If it wasn't, give it a thumbs down. Let me know why in the comments down below. And as always, if you want to see more content, please hit that subscribe button. It's totally free for you to do. It's a big deal for me, so thank you for that in advance, and thank you to all those who have already subscribed. You've been watching The Ghost Owl. Tune back in as we take a look at the infantry comparison for the Empire.